tasked with assembling an elite team to travel through time. All your worlds are about to change.
Hey guys, Nick here. Welcome back to another Legends of Tomorrow episode review. My thoughts on tonight's episode of Legends of Tomorrow titled Blood Ties. And this was an episode that overall wasn't too action-packed, not a whole lot of stuff going on, but it was a nice little filler episode. Last week, in my opinion, was like one of the better episodes of and most of the DC shows of that week. So going into this week, I was expecting another episode of that caliber. This episode was kind of toned down a bit. It was kind of like a smaller story, and I think this is the last bit of the episode where we get like three like little separate stories going on at the same time. Because in this episode we had Rip and Sarah doing their thing, trying to find Vandal Savage's money. We had Captain Cold, Heatwave, and Jax all trying to steal stuff and go to Leonard Stark's dad's house. And then there's this stuff going on with Kendra being in the med bay, and Ray and Stein trying to figure out a way of Ray blocking out all the knife stuff in her bloodstream. But I mean, I kind of hope that this episode, and it kind of seems like it, that from now on it'd be actually more of like the whole team being the focus instead of just like three little separate parts, if you guys know what I mean. But getting into the things that I actually really enjoyed about the episode, of course I love all the little Easter eggs, like in the beginning of the episode when Rip makes a reference of, I've seen Men of Steel die and Dark Knights fall. Very clear, references to Superman and Batman. I mean, that was in one of the trailers for the show, so it wasn't like, oh my god, because I already knew that was coming at some point. I mean, of course, it's still a cool reference, and it kind of goes into like, are Superman and Batman really in this universe? I mean, yeah, those are Easter eggs, but especially with the news that, like this week, like Flash is going over to Supergirl, and obviously Superman is in the Supergirl show. I mean, obviously not like in the show, but he's in the universe. Does that mean like these are all in the same universe? Does that mean Flash is going to another parallel Earth? We don't know. It would be cool if they're all connected, because then that means Superman is in the universe, and they have most of the Justice League in this whole universe. I'm straying off topic, but of course I like seeing those little Easter eggs and references in the show. What else? The Titanic reference that Ray made to Professor Stein. And if you guys don't know, the actor Victor Garber, who portrays Professor Stein, he played a supporting character in the movie Titanic. He had somewhat of a relationship with Kate Winslet's character in that movie. So of course they had to poke fun at that. I feel like this episode, at least for me, shows Katie Lotz getting better as an actress. And I liked her in Arrow a lot. She's like one of my favorite. Sarah Lance is one of my favorite characters in all these shows. But this episode really saw like an emotional side of really a lot of people in the show that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Especially with her stuff dealing with like her being a killer and all that stuff, and seeing her being able to control more of her bloodlust than Thea Queen does on Arrow. And I think in Arrow, they kind of say their excuse for Sarah having more control is because John Const's team brought her back from the Lazarus Pit, so he cleansed her soul when she came back from being in that weird Lazarus Pit alternate dimension thing. So of course she's not as crazy bloodlust as Thea Queen is, but I did like seeing her struggle in this episode and her relationship with Rip and seeing their dynamic now. Because that's one thing I do like about this show is that it introduces all these different dynamics that we wouldn't have really necessarily thought of. Like you would never have thought of, Captain Cold and Heatwave teaming up with all these heroes in the first place. I mean, yeah, there is an argument that Captain Cold is in the Justice League in the New 52. New 52 aside, I don't know. I like this version of Captain Cold, I can't really see being a hero. And even in aspects of the episode when he's like, it's all, like, if he was like Leonard Starr is more of a team player than most of the team, which is really weird. It feels a little out of character sometimes, but I mean, I get over it because it's like not that big a deal. What else? Seeing Ray, being doubtful of himself. At first, I was like, okay, yeah, it's kind of cool seeing him in a vulnerable place. But then I remember thinking, this is the same shit that they did on Arrow last year. So I mean, that kind of took me out of it. I mean, yeah, it was cool. Like seeing him like shrink down to like going to like Kendra's bloodstream and all that stuff, and seeing Professor Stein trying to like give him confidence. But it's like there's no reason for him to have any self doubt at this point. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's like, oh, my fiance was killed, because of Deathstroke. Blah 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 blah. It's like okay, like whatever. I heard all this stuff on Arrow last year, so the more I thought about it, the more I'm just like, okay, like that just takes me out of it. Seeing Leonard Snart, after they steal like that emerald or whatever, and they go to Leonard Snart's, childhood home, and he has that conversation with his dad. It's like, here, I stole this for you. You're gonna get arrested in 2 days. Be sent to Iron Heights for 5 years. Blah blah blah. And he's like, if you do this, I'll be watching you. I know who you become. Just don't do it, and don't ever hit your kid. Don't ever hit your wife. And watch out for my sister. And he's like, sister, and the dad's like, sister. And it is so weird seeing the actor who's playing Snart's dad, because it's obviously, because in the show, in the Flash, it was Michael Ironside who played Captain Cold's dad. It's seeing how it's an actor who clearly looks nothing like Michael Ironside. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of weird. But seeing Snart and him and Sarah really were the standout characters to me in this episode. And seeing him in the most emotionally vulnerable place that we've seen him in since the episode with him and his dad. And his dad was like threatening to kill his sister, basically. And I don't know, I'm really drawn by the fact that, seeing Leonard Snart, he, like, at first I thought he was a really one-dimensional character. I didn't really care for him. The first episode he appeared in Flash, back when that first aired. And seeing where Wentworth Miller is now compared to where he was then, Wentworth Miller really has grown into this role. And seeing, this is the best acting he's done as Leonard Snart that I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen him in that movie, the Loft or whatever. He was like whatever in that, and I never saw him in Prison Break, so I can't speak on his acting in that. But seeing him in this episode, and the only thing, because I'm only seeing him as Captain Cold, this is his best performance as Captain Cold that I've ever seen him in. So that was a nice thing to see. And one of my big complaints so far of the last few episodes, and even in the Arrow and Flash crossover, was the fact that Vandal Savage so far hasn't felt like a really menacing villain. And by the end of this episode, I felt like Vandal Savage is really freaking menacing. Like, I'm at a point where Casper Crump finally, I feel like he is like really quickly growing into the role. Because at first, I mean, I don't know, something about it just like didn't make it believable to me. And now everybody was like going on a speech about like, I had these like all these followers who died just for me, and they think, oh my god, and like the whole speech he gives, I was like, damn, like I was impressed. Like I was really impressed by that. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing Vandal Savage now, and the fact that they're like at the end of the episode they're jumping from the 70s to the 80s, which that's a really big time jump. So really, Vandal Savage does nothing for a whole decade. Whatever. Let's see what else. Seeing like the more backstory for Rip and Vandal Savage, when we see in the beginning of the episode that Rip goes back in time. But yeah, just seeing like how deeply, obviously Rip is affected by the death of his wife and child, and really just like he wants to kill Vandal Savage, but he doesn't think he has it in him because he's not really a killer. I totally understand that, and like I'm slowly starting to sympathize more with Rip as a character, because at first like he seemed like kind of like a self-righteous asshole in the last couple of episodes. Maybe that's just how they want the character to be conveyed. But yeah, I mean, this episode felt like he has, like, again, seeing him in a more emotionally vulnerable place, seeing his dynamic with Sarah that I actually really enjoyed. But yeah, other than that, I didn't have any, I liked the episode a lot, not too many problems. It was just a really filler episode for the most part. Nothing really bad off the top of my head that I can say, other than, like, just like the little weird, Vandal Savage goons that we had to deal with. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for me. So if you guys like what you see here, go ahead and hit subscribe below. I do review all these superhero shows every week, Monday through Thursday. So I review Supergirl on Mondays, Flash on Tuesdays, Arrow on Wednesdays, and of course Legends of Tomorrow on Thursday nights. So again, I'll be uploading all new content every week. And if you guys like what's here, go ahead and hit subscribe. Comment below if you guys want to keep the conversation going. What did you guys think of the episode? Did you guys like it? Were there any problems you had? Keep the conversation going. Give me a like. You give me feedback if you guys like what you see here. So yeah, that's going to be from me, guys. So until next time, have a good one.